Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game. So today we're continuing retrospective gaming in the 90s, where I take a look and decide what I think the most influential game of every year is, 1990 to 1999. And it should be painfully obvious right now, we are playing the King of Fighters 94, the original King of Fighters release. And while there were a ton of different games to pick from in 94, this one to me is definitely one that I always had to talk about, even if maybe it wouldn't be your pick. Because it's wild to think that the King of Fighters franchise got its start here in 94. We've been playing so many King of Fighters games ever since. There are dozens upon dozens upon dozens of entries in 2D and in 3D, and it is still a franchise that's going strong to this day. It basically gave us the modern King of Fighters formula. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. If you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I have a Patreon link down below as well. But the King of Fighters 94 is important for many different reasons. First off, obviously it starts the entire franchise, and we would get yearly releases all the way up to 2003 on the Neo Geo AES. And I love this franchise so much I have every single AES copy on my shelf ready to pop into my Neo Geo. Secondarily, this was kind of the generation in which SNK changed their art style. Before this you had Art of Fighting, you had Fatal Fury Special, all had a very early gen Neo Geo look. When the King of Fighters 94 came out, the sprite work, the backgrounds, had a completely different aesthetic, and SNK would go on to keep that aesthetic for the entirety of their development on the Neo Geo. Whether you're talking Giro Mark of the Wolves, The Last Blade 1 and 2, Samurai Shodown, they basically changed right around this time. Secondarily, this is just still SNK's biggest franchise around when it comes to fighting games, and really set the tone of what everything would be moving forward. And even though 94 is definitely the most antiquated release because it is the first, it still has all that KOF flair that you know, love, and crave. And the backgrounds here were just so much better animated. They were so much more lush than we had seen before on the Neo Geo. I almost felt like it had gotten a hardware upgrade, but it was just down to a different art style and a little bit bigger of a cartridge. But this level right here in this Mexican cafe with the chandelier and everyone cheering in the background, that was just stuff we had never seen before. Yes, there were Street Fighter games out there, and maybe someday I'll do a gaming in the 90s arcade specific franchise series if you want to see that, but honestly, I kept this to home consoles, and this is a home console release because it came out on the AES. But this is just, again, a game I've been playing forever as far as the franchise is concerned. And while KOF 94 definitely is the most limited, this is just a situation in which you can find a King of Fighters that you love, whether it's 2002 Unlimited Match on the Taito Type X2 or any of the modern versions of the game. There's so many different options to choose from. You can play every single game and never get bored. Now 94 didn't have the team edit mechanic that would come in 95, so the 3 players you get on a team are the 3 players you're going to have to use for the entirety of the game. And that was a little bit of a miss that SNK rectified in the next release, because if you really loved playing as 2 members of the team, but you could not gel with the movement style or input set of the 3rd member, you were stuck with them. There was really nothing you could do. But now today modders have gone in and made a team edit function, so I will leave a link in the description below to the video I did on that last year, because it really did solve a glaring issue with King of Fighters 94. But all of the characters here, some came before in the Fatal Fury franchise, but some were created specifically just for King of Fighters, and this series would go on to give us some of the most iconic King of Fighters characters around, and some of them got the introduction right here in KOF 94. But again, it's just so much fun to go back and think that there was a time and place in which the King of Fighters didn't exist as a franchise. If you grew up in the 80s, or if you were a 90s kid, you realized that 94 was the advent of this series, but if you grew up later in 2000, you were definitely living in a world in which the King of Fighters was always around. But the reality is that was not the case. In 1994, I saw this in my local arcade, played it, fell in love, and bought a Neo Geo much later in life to make sure I could have a copy. It also has an amazing soundtrack with that Neo Geo hardware, so go ahead and listen for 45 seconds, and I'll be back to tell you more about the game.
Hyderun versus Hyderun. Fight! Hyderun won! Hyderun versus Naru. Fight!
Awesome music, and the King of Fighters franchise would go on to be known for having great soundtracks for pretty much every single game, and every game in the KOF run from 94 to 2003 was amazing, outside the exception of 2001, which is definitely considered to be the dark sheep as far as this franchise is concerned. But this game just set the tone for what we'd be getting moving forward, and I just remember again seeing this in arcades. I really hadn't seen many other 2D fighting games that weren't made by Capcom, and that's the other reality of the King of Fighters. It really took the fight to, pun very much intended, Capcom and their Street Fighter franchise. Before that, of course, you had some other 2D fighters, but nothing ever really hit in the same way, including SNK's own stuff. Fatal Fury was huge, but the King of Fighters really felt like that ultimate challenger to something like Street Fighter, a franchise that you could either decide if you're an SNK fan or a Capcom fan. And for me, and I know not everyone agrees, it seems to be 50-50, what SNK did in the 90s with 2D fighting games still impressed me more than what Capcom did. Maybe it's just the characters, maybe it's the 4 buttons versus 6, maybe it's just the vibe and the aesthetic, but King of Fighters has always been my preferred over Street Fighter. And then when you get to Giru, Mark of the Wolves, and The Last Blade, again, still my preferred over anything Capcom ever made. And some of the characters in this game just absolutely don't seem to make any contextual sense outside of their stages, but you have to also give credit where credit's due. These stages are absolutely amazing to look at. Here in New York, we have the Twin Towers in the background. We're fighting under the Brooklyn Bridge at golden hour, and you just have basically everything going on in the background, so much so that you basically want to stop and look at all of the details and not pay attention to the fight, but that is a one-way ticket to end up losing the match. Or something like the Japan stage here, you wonder what in the hell is going on. Basically seems like Mad Max Thunderdome meets something like Escape from New York, except it's in Japan, and it really just begs the question as to what's happened here. You have these searchlights, you have barbed wire and barricades everywhere. Is this post-apocalyptic Japan? You really have no idea. You're just here for the fight, and you absolutely love playing it. And the Neo Geo hardware, whether it was in arcades or if you had a very rich friend that had one at home, was just such aspirational hardware. And this, in my opinion, was the first time we really saw that new style of graphics from SNK or anybody else on the Neo Geo. And still to this day, I think these games are absolutely gorgeous in motion. The sprite work, the animations, the backgrounds, the colorways, the aesthetic. These games have aged so gracefully, and I would say compared to something like Street Fighter 2, I just think King of Fighters is the prettier game and the more fun game for me. But you leave me a comment down below and you tell me what you think. And remember, just because I say I like something better than something else does not mean I'm saying Street Fighter is a bad game or I think it is a flawed game. It just means I prefer one over the other. I'm always surprised by some of the comments I get when people seem to think that I'm putting down Street Fighter and saying it's garbage just because I like King of Fighters and Neo Geo better. That is not the case. We all get opinions. You can like whatever you like, I can like whatever I like, and if you think Street Fighter 2 is better than KOF, that doesn't mean that I think you're saying KOF is bad. You just have a preference. But outside of that one little comment that always confuses me, again, this was just such a revelatory experience. It was a brand new Neo Geo game in a brand new franchise with a brand new art style that we just really hadn't seen much of before. And while every single game after King of Fighters 94 would be a better entry than the original, because of course the first is usually never the best, this started the entire franchise, and it's still a series that we can play today. And it all had to start somewhere, and it started in 1994. Maybe you weren't alive when that happened, maybe you saw an arcade cabinet back in the day, maybe you didn't. It's just one of those things. Everything has to start somewhere, and for one of the best fighting game franchises ever made, in my opinion, it all starts back in 94 when I was like 10 years old. And I still enjoy playing this game today, even if it isn't my go-to. Pretty much every single King of Fighters has something charming about it. Even 2001, which while being the weakest, still has some things to appreciate. But this is the thing. King of Fighters 94 has been what I call a lifetime franchise for me. Every single release, I pick it up, I learn it, I play it, and I have fun. I've been playing this thing for more than 2/3 of my life, and I'm going to continue to do it as long as I enjoy playing video games and my fingers don't have any arthritis in it making it impossible. Because I'm assuming once we hit a certain age, playing fighting games is probably going to be really difficult. We're sure that you'll leave me a comment down below and you tell me, Street Fighter or King of Fighters. I would be curious to hear. And don't forget, next week we'll have the 1995 entry in the series, which should be a fun one as well. But short of that, I'm done. Go play King of Fighters, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.